Hey, Motorman here, and today we're going to talk about the motorcycles, the heavyweight motorcycles that are the most difficult to handle at low speeds, the top 5. The number one most difficult heavyweight motorcycle to control at low speeds has got to be the Honda Gowing with the DCT transmission. On a bike like this, without a clutch, you have to find that sweet spot between just enough throttle and just enough rear brake pressure, and that's not easy. The fact that also the motorcycle weighs 900 pounds doesn't help things. This rider has practiced quite a bit, been to the class 3 or 4 times, and still has a problem with it. Not to say that it can't be done. It's just going to take a lot longer to really get the hang of it. So don't buy a Goldwing DCT if you think it's going to be easier. If maybe you've got a Goldwing now or another type of motorcycle with a clutch and throttle, and you think you're not very good at handling the bike or using that friction zone, that you're going to get one of these and it's going to be a piece of cake. It's just the opposite. It's going to take a lot longer. The very first time I got on one of these motorcycles was at one of my classes, and I quickly found out that finding that sweet spot takes some time. Now, I didn't practice or warm up with the motorcycle, and I'm sure I could get the bike down to 18-foot turns, but it's going to take a lot more practice on this bike with the DCT transmission, no question about it. Another thing about these new Gold Wings, unlike the older wings, there's very little tip-over protection. You drop one of these, and yeah, you're going to have scratched bags and possibly a scratched fairing. It's going to cost you some money to get it fixed if you're not handy and can't do it yourself. I don't know why they did that. The previous generation wing was very good in that respect, had good protection, but these newer ones, not so much. The good news is there are several aftermarket companies that offer crash bars that work very well, and I know this because a rider came to my class with one of them, new crash bars for this bike, dropped it several times and had no damage to the motorcycle. So get yourself some aftermarket crash bars. Now we're going to count the Goldwing, the standard Goldwing with the clutch, as probably the second most difficult to handle. That's just because it's a lot of weight, it's a long motorcycle, and transitioning quickly from left to right and right to left takes a lot more effort than, most heavyweight motorcycles. Can be done. That rider practiced quite a bit. And here's number 3 most difficult motorcycles to handle at low speeds, and that's the BMW 1600s with the 6-cylinder motorcycle. And the reason it's so difficult to handle at low speeds is actually 2 things. The throttle is extremely sensitive. It's got a very light flywheel, just like the Goldwings. And the brake, the rear brake, is very sensitive. Finding that sweet spot between just enough brake pressure and just enough throttle while in the friction zone, it takes some time. This rider practiced prior to coming to the class, and I'm glad he did. Did very well considering it's a difficult motorcycle to ride. And another thing about these bikes is, like the Goldwing, there's almost no protection if the bike tips over. This rider even equipped his bike with aftermarket crash bars, and he dropped the bike, and you guessed it, crash bars didn't help much. He had some damage on the bags, and on the BMW, you have to get parts for it. Yeah, you're going to pay for it. Not to say you shouldn't go out and practice, but if you're going to get one of these bikes and think you're going to whip a U-turn in 18 feet, the bike is capable, but it's going to take the rider a lot longer to get the hang of it on this type of motorcycle. In fact, every motorcycle we're going to show you now in the top 5 can be handled with the ease of a child's toy, but you got to know the proper techniques, and you got to put in the practice hours. How much practice? It really depends on the person and your fear level. If you're really good at the clutch and throttle on the motorcycle you have now, and you get one of these, it's probably going to take you at least 4 to 5 hours of practice to get as good on that bike as you were on, say, a Harley Davidson or a mid-size bike. Next is the Indian touring motorcycles. The biggest problem I find with the Indians, well, actually 2 things. The handlebars are very wide, so your arms are really stretched out when you're turning the bars, and they don't offer as much lock-to-lock as, for instance, a Harley-Davidson. The third thing is the throttle is the opposite of the Gowing and the BMW. I call it a lazy throttle. You're given a throttle and you feel the bike should respond, but it's just very slow response at low speeds. At higher speeds, you're not even going to notice. When shifting gears, second or third gear, you won't even notice it. But at low speeds, the throttle, it just takes a lot more turn of the throttle to get the proper amount of RPMs. And I think that has something to do with the emission controls on the bike, and probably there's something with the aftermarket that can help that. But a stock motorcycle on these Indian touring bikes, yeah, it's got a very lazy throttle. The handlebars don't turn very far from lock to lock. So it's not the motorcycle to buy if you ever think about going into any kind of competition, because those competitions are generally set up for the Harley-Davidson wheelbase and motorcycles, and you're not going to keep up with a Harley. With a good rider on a Harley and a good rider on an Indian, yeah, the Indian's just not going to keep up. And I found this to be the case even on the new Challenger. I was expecting maybe something a little bit better. I don't remember I road tested, I don't remember about the throttle. It didn't have the response that I get on my Harley-Davidson, but I don't think it was as bad as their other models. But again, when you turn the handlebars, it just doesn't turn quite far enough from lock to lock. Under normal riding conditions, out on the road, if all you do is cruise down the street, 50 or 60 miles an hour, make great big wide turns once in a while, it's not going to affect you. When it does affect you is when you're making low speed maneuvers, or if you have to quickly transition from left to right to avoid a car that pulls out in front of you, it could affect you there. I also noticed they don't have as great a lean angle as the Harley-Davidsons. Here I am on the Challenger, first time I took it through the course, and I noticed in this 26-foot turn to the right, I was at full lock. Granted, I could have used a little bit more of the space available for me, and I might not have had to quite touch full lock, but in the 24-foot to the left here, I was at full lock the entire time. Generally, when you turn the handlebars to full lock, that scares people, and as soon as they hit that lock, they turn the bars the opposite way, the bike straightens up, and you run out of the exercise. If you're making a U-turn on the street and you hit full lock, yeah, you're going to straighten up those bars, and possibly, depending on where you're looking, if you look at the curb you don't want to hit, you're going to hit it. A fine motorcycle, plenty of power, smooth, but just not what I'd call nimble at low speeds. It's going to take you more time to get really good on the Indian motorcycles, any of the touring models, than it would on the average heavyweight motorcycle. When I say the average heavyweight motorcycle, the gold standard for me is Harley-Davidsons. They were designed to do these kind of maneuvers. That's why the police use them. And not to say they can't be done on the Indian. It's just going to take a lot more practice. Now, this is the full touring motorcycle. Weighs quite a bit, somewhere around 900 pounds. Very similar to the Harley-Davidson in weight. Just doesn't have as much lean angle, and you run out of lock a little too quick. You can get very good on it. I've ridden every one of their models. In fact, I'm the guy that made the Ride Like a Pro on Your Indian video to show you that these techniques work like a charm on this motorcycle. And as you can see, even with this tiny woman on this 900-pound motorcycle, you can ride it through with the ease of a child's toy. It's just going to take you more practice. If you're not good on the motorcycle you have now and you get one of these, it's not going to help. It's going to make it worse. All right, that's it. Till next time.